let this be the trumpet to all you Trumpsters. Now, I don't want to fuck around and offend anybody. This is all facts. I just challenge you to do your research. I just want you to know that if you do your research, you may have a different opinion, right? There's a lot of... Let me just compare it to this, right? There's a lot of motherfucking Islamophobia because people believe that this is a horrible fucking religion or whatnot because of what's happening in the Middle East and some of the things they see on movies and this and that. Well, I'll challenge you to go and think of it like this, right? If you give a Bible to 3 different people, they're all going to articulate it different, right? The problem is most people don't read the Bible. They'll listen to one of the 3 that basically read the Bible and listen to their interpretation of it. So at that point, they're misguided. They don't really even think for themselves. They're only going ahead and taking a look at what was said to them. Don't be that guy as the public, is basically what I'm telling you with the president, right? Because it's the same fucking analogy. It's the same fucking similarity, metaphorically speaking, right? So this is what I'm saying to you. I'm going to get to his policy, and I'll go ahead and debunk a lot of stuff for you to go ahead and know. But I want you to go ahead and know about the family history first, right? Because you got to know a person. To know a person, you got to know their history, right? The apple never falls too far from the tree. So I can't say that right now. Too hard. In any case, I want you to think about Trump's standing on immigrants, right? Shutting down the border, if you will. Did you know that Trump's father's father was an immigrant? His grandmother was an immigrant. His mother was an immigrant. His two of his 3 wives were immigrants. Did you know that? Trump's father's father came here and started his whole patriarch off soliciting prostitution and alcohol in a prohibitionary period. Now get it how you live. I'm not mad at you. Do what you want to do. Get your money, right? I don't like pimps. Not really a fan of drug dealers, but in any case, I'm not a motherfucker that hates on people to go ahead and provide and get what they got to go ahead and do what they do, right? As long as they're not forcing it on people. So in any case, his father comes here from Germany, not Sweden, as for whatever reason he likes to lie about. But he comes here from Germany, marries, I believe, a Czech woman, right, which is Trump's mother, or excuse me, Trump's grandmother. And then basically has Trump's father, right? Now, Trump's father marries another immigrant who I believe, maybe I got that mixed up. I'm not sure but I know they were both immigrants, right? So Trump's father marries another immigrant, and Trump's father becomes basically successful off getting loans from the bank to be able to go ahead and start development for housing for sailors and people coming back from the wars, right? Which is a very smart idea. Can't knock him for that, right? He's a son of a hustler, right? Simple as that. Son of a hustler, as was Trump. So his father ends up getting these loans, and the way he basically sparks up his money, he was investigated because he was coming up on too much money, and the way he was doing it, and it ended up not being illegal at that time, is basically he would go to the bank and go ahead and overvalue a particular property, right? So let's say a property was really maybe 150, not at that time, but let's just say it was 150. He might quote to the bank it was 200. So they give him a $200,000 loan. He cashed it on that property, used the additional money to put in an additional property, and so on and so forth. You see how that works, right? And so there was nothing really wrong with that because it wasn't illegal at that point. So he came upon a lot of money. Then he was investigated for racism with tenant acts, right? Because he wouldn't allow black and brown, or basically found any way to keep them from being able to rent from him, right? So just keep that in mind, because the apple, again, never falls too far from the tree. So, quick sidebar, it's not immigrants he has a problem with, it's brown. It's anybody from South America he has a problem with, right? And I'm sure if there was anybody that was, black or if any other creed he doesn't particularly favor, he would have a problem with any border that allowed these people to come through as well, right? So, it's just awkward to me that you would have a family pretty much of immigrants, which your bloodline's not even from here, or American born, right? Most of us aren't, but in any case, you decided to fuck around and have a problem with only one immigrant. Okay. I don't know what they did to you. Did they steal your girl? Because I know nothing's ever happened to you. I know nobody's ever been reported being raped by in your family. No one's ever been murdered in your family by an immigrant, by a South American, right? Never been Never been any of that to you. So what happened? Because I know you employed a lot of those workers. It was said that you were employing a lot of those workers under the table too to build those hotels. Same workers that you have such a problem with, that are supposedly taking black and brown jobs. And when I look at that, another sidebar, I sit there and think, oh damn, well I was a brown man, a half brown man, half white man. I guess I should be so thankful to President Trump that I could go sit in a fucking parking lot at Home Depot or possibly go work at a car wash or somewhere outside in this hot ass fucking heat for fucking bottom pay. I guess I should be so fucking thankful that you're allowing me to go and have that job. Right? I don't know any American that would want to go and do that shit. Much less for the pay that those folks have to work for. Right? And as much as people like to say, oh, well, I don't want to pay for their health care and blah, blah, blah. You know how many motherfuckers in America skip on a hospital bill? I'm one of them. I've done it too. They're motherfucking outrageous, right? And at that case, do you know how much these people are? Do you realize anything that you fucking purchase in the United States is taxed, right? It's taxed. Every single dollar you spend is taxed. So they do produce in this country because they have to pay those taxes. As far as healthcare, it's not as free as you think. Hospitals can turn anybody that want away. They can turn anybody away, even ones with insurance. If your limit is not high enough to go ahead and cover a particular surgery, good luck. Hope you find the funding. If you don't find the funding, well, we'll let you die on the table. We'll keep you comfortable though. So before you think all that, I just want you to go and think about a few other things, right? So let me get back to this family history, and then we'll talk more about the Mexican side, or the South American side, because it's not just Mexicans, it's Venezuelans, it's Colombians, it's basically any fucking that's Latin America that he has a problem with, right? But in any case, back to Trump. So Trump is born, right, under a hustler, son of another hustler. Trump is rubbing shoulders with Ivy League people, right? Trump was able to go to Harvard off his daddy's money. Trump was able to go and get a $50 million loan off his daddy's name. Also able to get a loan from his father himself. Now, not to say he didn't go ahead and turn, obviously some gold there, but let's be real. If you had that type of capital, who wouldn't have an idea, I could put a hotel here in downtown New York. I know it'll go and pop. If you had the fucking money, I'm pretty sure anybody would go ahead and do that shit. Especially if you have the know-how from a father that's already came up and doing the shit, right? So it's a trust fund kid. But funny that he identifies with the blue collar worker. He never did a fucking job in his fucking life that was blue collar. So how do you identify with him? Alright. So after that, and Trump becomes successful, there's a lot of things he touched that become bankrupt. So before you decide that he's a financial guru or that he's some sort of real estate fucking head honcho, if you will, a lot of shit went bankrupt, right? And as a lot of people do when they're rich, they can face bankruptcy because they have enough cash that's not going to hurt them. They can go and still purchase this, or they'll still get a loan because of their name, right? It's not like you and I. It's not like a blue-collar worker. You can't just go walk into the motherfucking bank and ask for $50 million. I got a 780 credit score right now. I can't just go walk into the bank and get $50 million. I've tried. So, hold on. Let me like this one more time. So, then Trump marries his first wife, who's an immigrant, right? Has a couple of children, cheats on her with a side bitch, marries a side bitch. That doesn't work out, marries another immigrant. Now, what's crazy, he had a relationship with Epstein, right? He's on tape saying, yeah, Epstein likes him young. He's also on tape telling a girl that's in her fucking preteens or early teens that, oh, when you're older, I'll probably be dating her. Same dude that said that if my daughter wasn't my daughter, I'd probably be dating her. Same dude that's got a wife that's 25 years his junior. Same wife that supposedly, I don't know if this is fact, so I'm not going to say that. You can fact check me on this, and I might be wrong, but it was said that she was an escort. 25 years your junior, escort in Russia. You just an old freak boy. That's what it is. You an old freak boy. Probably got fantasies about your daughter and shit. Based on the comments, grabbed the bitches by the pussy and shit. He's a weird dude. So, he's 80 years old. He had a racist father. He's got a love for immigrants, certain immigrants, and got a hate for others, a specific immigrant. Also, which he's employed to go and build his hotels, right? Calls them murderers, rapists. these countries from El Salvador, Venezuela, they're sending all their bad ones here. Mexico sending all their bad ones here. Blah blah. If you look at the crime rate, if you did any homework in El Salvador or Venezuela, you would actually go ahead and see what's happening is they're basically doing mass fucking lockups, and they're deploying the fucking military out there in order to go ahead and go home to home, door to door, and anybody that looks like a possibly gang member is getting locked the fuck up. Then they're basically telling gang members on the streets, if you do anything out here, we're gonna make it so bad for your people on the inside that they're going to fucking pay the consequence for everything that you do, and then you'll be right there with them. Then they're also shoot on sight. So I don't know if anybody knows what martial law is, but if that's what you want in this particular country, that's what basically, how El Salvador and Venezuela, they eliminated the crime. It's not that they're sending their people here. It's that they fucking deployed the fucking military and martial law, basically, and then basically mass imprisonment. And don't get me wrong, the motherfuckers out there that's killing for nothing and doing that shit is completely wrong. It's fucking sick. It's disgusting, right? But I'm gonna also say this. It's not our life. We're not over there. We don't know the experiences of their life. We don't know the fucking third world poverty of what the fuck they experienced to make them like that, right? So that's why I'm not so quick to judge anybody, because again, I'm not God, and by what it says in the good book, thou shalt not judge, right? So it may sound like I'm judging Trump, and I don't want to make it sound like that, because realistically, I'm just giving you facts, right? And this is all things that you can piece together for yourself, because it's all related to history. So, getting kind of off his personal life, right, at this point, let me just say this before I kind of get off his personal life. You make a comment to Obama about him not being from here. You made comments to Nikki Haley, same thing. But your whole family's not from here. Your wife's not from here. 2 of them weren't from here. You have children with foreigners. Your last wife, is first language is Russian. You can tell the way she speaks. She still speaks broken English. We know that because she basically went ahead and took Michelle Obama's whole fucking speech as the first lady's speech. Word for word almost. I think she just signed her fucking name at the bottom. Alright. So, now getting on the policy, right? When we talk about policy, I know people believe that tax cuts, it would benefit you, right? But what happened under his first term when we did those tax cuts? I know specifically I saw an additional $30 on my paycheck. Thanks, Mr. Trump. I appreciate that. But now what am I paying in inflation? You put all these tariffs on China, Mexico, any country we pretty much do business with, and guess who paid the cost? The additional cost is the consumer. Me, you, the blue collar worker. Because the companies and the companies from these foreign countries, do you think that they're going to go ahead and shell out the additional cost on them and just bite the bullet, or do you think they put it on you, the consumer? So that $30 doesn't go far when you go ahead and the cost of food, the cost of fucking materials, anything pretty much that basically cost that you would need as far as a necessity, everything went up. Everything. Right? Drill, baby, drill. Couldn't get it done the first time. And then on top of that, if you're a company, right, let's just say you own a company, the higher the demand, the higher you can charge, right? Which we know is part of the reason why the gas prices are inflated, and it is ridiculous, don't get me wrong, right? It could definitely come down at least $2, at least to $1.50, we would think, right? But with the wages and production costs and all these extra tariffs and all that extra tax costs and all that extra shit, these companies still got to be profitable, right? So I have to create basically enough demand for me to be able to be profitable. Now, it could still be a Ponzi scheme. It could be some shelf bullshit where basically they're saying, well, we go and control the market, so realistically we're still making billions and billions of dollars, and we can charge whatever the fuck we want. So if you're trying to break that up, I'm not mad at it. But when you start talking about drill, baby, drill, if I'm a company owner, now you're telling me I need to go ahead and create an oversupply. I know as a company owner, and anybody that knows supply and demand, if you create an oversupply, there's less demand. That means prices come way down. That means as a company, I may not be able to seek the kind of profits that I was making, right? Now, granted, maybe some of those profits are ridiculous. Maybe they could cut some of these costs. But we don't really know unless you go ahead and evaluate a company. You know every single thing and how much they go ahead and pay each employee, how much they got to pay for tax, insurance, production costs, every single motherfucking thing you can fucking think, right? So when we look at that as a company owner, what company is going to want to go ahead and oversupply the fucking market and then basically take into their profits? No one. Then on top of that, how much do you think in tax money the government makes off these particular companies that make billions, right? Now, granted, there's loopholes, but as gas companies, it's a little bit different. It's a little harder to get through those type of loopholes as an actual corporation company, as a gas company, right? Don't get me wrong, they can make the tax cuts, and I'm sure they do. They get away with some shit. But regardless of the fact, they need that type of motherfucking money. They need the tax money, right? And I'll get into also how your taxes don't really necessarily pay the government, because it's more so bonds that pays the government. So it's weird. It's wonder where the taxes really go. Probably to the yachts and shit. But in any case, after getting out of the tax cuts, after talking about the drill baby drill and creating oversupply, which is probably not going to happen, let's talk about the stock market. Since we're on supply and demand, right? Now the stock market, under Trump's term, I just want you to keep in mind, in 3 years, let's take it back for a second, because I have to do this real quick. And I know nobody wants to hear this, especially if you're a Trump fan. But Republicans historically tank the economy. It dates back to Bush. You can see it in Trump's term, right? But Bill Clinton handed President Bush the best economy prior to Obama handing the economy over to Trump, right? When Clinton hands the economy over to Bush, Bush manages to tank the economy to the new lows that we hadn't seen since pretty much damn near the early 90s, right? So you managed to erase all gains under Clinton. Then on top of that, you managed to go and take it lower. I think to the president prior to that, which was probably his father, right? Obama gets the worst motherfucking president, or worst economy any president's ever handed. In 4 years, he eliminates all losses that were suffered under 8 years under the Bush term. In 4 years. This also dates back to 2009, where, basically we suffered the worst motherfucking housing crash, right? We've been at war for years. Hurricane Katrina, right? A lot of shit happened. Obama fucks around and eliminates all losses. Don't remember protesters getting mowed down on the streets. I know you guys are going to try and bring up the St. Louis shit, but realistically, I mean, he was trying to handle it diplomatically as can be, and I know there was black and brown folks that were mad and felt like he should have took a different tone or a different side to it, but at the end of the day, again, you got to love a president that's diplomatic and can articulate himself as an intellect and try and go ahead and basically put water on the shit and put the fire out rather than fan the flames, right? So when I look at Trump and I say, there's a lot of protesters getting mowed down on the streets. There was a lot of divide being spread on the news every single fucking day. Don't get me wrong. The news loves to go. They were doing this on Obama's term too. They love to go ahead and try and fuck around and fan the flames and add fuel to the fire and even create fires that aren't even there. But in Trump's case, a lot of that shit, he's basically giving them the match. He's striking the match and throwing that motherfucker on them and allowing them to do what they want to do with it, right? Because you can't keep your fucking temper under control. You can't articulate yourself in an intelligent manner or a diplomatic manner, right? You act like a 4-year-old every single time someone pushes back or pushes a button. And when I think about it, number one, I'm not sure I want somebody that doesn't need any motherfucking say-so from anybody else to have that button to go and be in charge of our nuclear warfare type of shit. I don't want a person like that just gets mad at a motherfucking brain. You know what? Fuck them. Fuck the country. Fuck them. He might divorce his wife. His wife go fuck a Russian or whatnot. Then what? So I'm just thinking, like, just being real. Just being honest. You never know what could happen. So she was an escort. So in any case, see, what have we talked about? We talked about the tax cuts. We talked about stock market. That's what we're on, right? So when Trump is handed the best economy, so let's get back to Obama. My fault. After those 4 years of eliminating every single loss that Bush took, and then basically taking the economy higher than he took the economy to higher highs than Bush was handed the presidency prior to Clinton, right? But remember, Bush took us to new lows. So Obama took out all those lows, created new highs that the market's never seen. Then in another 4 years, he took it to an additional new high. You can go ahead and fact check me if I'm wrong. Fact check me if I'm lying. Take a look at the S&P 500, which is notoriously like a measuring stick to determine how well the economy is doing as a whole. and look at an Obama's era and tell me if there was ever a downtrend. There might have been a consolidation period. There might have been a pullback, but there was never, ever a downtrend. Not one. Not one. Right? So, by saying so, again, you eliminate all losses by Bush, take us to new highs, never a downtrend. The economy's basically running at a great point at that point, right? You can get a house, you can afford basically anything and everything at that point, right? He got us to a point where you can he took us to from the trenches to the Hamptons, and gives Trump the key. So 3 years under Trump's term, it continues to run smoothly. He likes to go ahead and talk about unemployment is at all-time lows, job growth, all-time highs, blah, blah, but that was already running off of Obama's economy. You know what happened in 3 years under Trump's economy? Every gain he saw under that stock market, under his presidency, was lost. And more. He sunk into Obama's term. He took us to basically where Obama was in president. He eliminated some gains in Obama's presidency. Then, in the fourth year, right, after tanking us, it shoots back up. And he likes to go and say the economy was good under him, inflation was low, blah, blah. Well, the stock market, part of the reason it shot back up in the fourth year, number one, it's an election year. People were tired of you. Number two, every company was extremely undervalued at this point because you managed to tank the market with your handling of COVID. And I'll get into that in just a minute. You remember, inject yourself with UV light, follow with a cocktail of Lysol. You remember that, right? Take horse pills, whatever the case was. Right? But in any case, the market shoots back up in the fourth year, election year, and again, the market's undervalued. So it shoots back up. Biden takes over, and Trump likes to say he hands him the best presidency, right? So, getting back to that third year, in 2019, October, November of 2019, COVID was discovered, right? They knew what was happening. They started to go ahead and somewhat report it on the news, right? December starts to pick up some steam. By February, we still haven't closed off any borders. We didn't do anything to go ahead and protect the community. And we're at full-blown, basically, the world shuts down. Whole world shuts down, right? Which is the reason why everything was lost in the stock market. But the handling goes to your guy. The handling goes to your guy. He's the one that has the most say-so. He gets to go ahead and overwrite Congress and all that shit, right? So, stock market tanks under him, comes back up, and he starts shelling out free money. Free money, free money, free money, right? PPE loans. Tenant acts. Remember that? You could fuck around and basically not be evicted, not pay rent, not to have the job and still get paid for it. Remember that, right? PPE loans. You remember, I'm sure everybody knows somebody that took advantage of it. I know people that buy houses off the shit. And what's crazy is the ones that, I'll just say this, Fox and CNN, all those guys, they took advantage of it. Congress, senators, they took advantage of it. A lot of these guys don't have real companies with 20 plus employees, but they took advantage of it to get the most they possibly could. Nothing happened because they got political pull, but the people that I know, all of them got prosecuted, with the exception of a few. But I'll talk about that, how that delved into the housing market, but I just want you to think about that. Think about that shit. All that free money. People got, basically, a lot of people in their head, I got a lot of money under Trump. And you think that you're going to get that free money again, maybe. Guess how we pay back for it? Taxes and inflation. That's how you paid it back. Right? And a lot of us, if you were at work, if you were working, paying your bills, you didn't get any kind of, there was nothing there for you. I didn't even get my 3 checks that I was supposed to get. I think I got maybe 1 or 2 of them. Right? And I didn't get no PPE loans. I didn't do none of that bullshit, obviously. I don't fuck with the Fed's money. I know they're going to come after it to the people that don't have any ties with them. So at the end of the day, I didn't take advantage of the shit. Right? And I'm a blue-collar worker. I work my motherfucking ass off. So, you talk about all that free money that was coming into the economy, people taking advantage of it. He gets out of the presidency. Number one, there's a fucking riot. Allows for, I've never seen that where somebody tries to take, or people start storming the White House, right? Almost caused a fucking civil war. says that you would pardon these particular protesters, but wouldn't pardon the other protesters that were protesting against you or protesting for equal rights or, you know, just fucking humanity, if you will, right? Whole team got locked up, but you. And the only reason you haven't is because somehow you got immunity because you were the former president. But we're found and convicted of 38 charges. How come my friends can't vote? They're felons, but you could run for a presidency. Anybody else would go to jail. It's proven. Your team did, but you didn't. Right? So in any case, getting back to kind of the economy and how everything works again, we know the tax cuts, how that fucking works. That basically you pay for it on the other end, right? We know drill baby drill doesn't fucking work. We know as far as putting all this money into the fucking economy, as far as just fraudulent money, how you end up paying back for that. So now let's talk about things like the housing market, right? Your gas and all that good shit, right? So number one, gas was not down under Trump. It may have went down for periods. Same thing it does with every president, but then it comes back up, right? And again, if you create oversupply, we know how that's going to work. So can't really go ahead and give anybody credit for that, right? But when we talk about the housing market, again, I know people that use that PPE money for that shit. I also know that interest rates, because I bought a house with my mother in 2018, were damn near fucking almost at 0%, right? Almost in what I thought was already an inflated market. But when you throw free money into the economy and then adding COVID, along with the tariffs that you put on all these other countries in which we have to pay the additional cost of the consumer, now labor costs went up, material costs went up, housing inventory was down. Nobody can get a house now that's a first-time buyer. You're competing with Wall Street. You're competing with big investment corporations that can get these houses bottom dollar, cheaper than you can, right? And often do. They solicit more than you. They're going to fuck around and be able to get approved for better loans on the bank than you, better interest rates, because the bank is going to love to go ahead and loan anybody money that they know that's going to get paid back on. And they'll give you a better interest rate on that. And on top of that, again, they're paying, say you're paying $450,000 for a house, $400, they're paying $350 to $300. You can knock off 100 points. So I just want you to think about how this adds into 2022, right? Because he loves to say, look at the housing market, look at the inflation. Well, the inflation that was driven up by all that free fucking money and how COVID was handled with all the fucking tariffs along with that and placed on these other countries, right? We know that labor costs, material costs went way the fuck up. We know that housing went way down because we had a lockdown. They couldn't develop new inventory. And on top of that, material costs were so high, it would have been fucking pointless. We know interest rates were so low at some point that everybody could buy pretty much everything, including Wall Street and corporations, which most of them did, putting you out as a first-time buyer. We know that this housing market shot up so motherfucking much. At this point, it's over 100 to 150%. Still overvalued, at least in my market in Arizona or Phoenix, for that fact. Right? Interest rates now, they had no fucking choice but to go and raise them because inflation was running wild and the housing market became so overinflated, which they weren't able to bring down with this now. And they don't even add in the cost of gas, food, think your rent, certain things into that motherfucking, you know, to that to that instrument to go and determine how the economy is doing as a whole. So a lot of homework you should go ahead and do, because when you look at it, 2022, was it really Biden's fault? Maybe some of it was, right? Maybe some of his policy did, but a lot of it factually was because of the free money you put in the economy, the fact that you fucked up the whole housing market and fucking the whole world for that fact with COVID and the way it was handled, right? You spread nothing but hate and fucking divide. That was, or gave the news the fuel to be able to do so, or light the match, right? You come from a family of fucking racists. See what else can I go? Oh yeah, you definitely go ahead and date escorts that are immigrants and only have a problem with one particular type of immigrant versus the other. You're questioning a lady's heritage and race as a white man, right? You question another president whether he was born here. Seeing kind of a pattern here. Apple never falls far from the tree. Never falls far from the tree. Stock market did horrible under you. Had to pay for it in 2022 again. No one can buy a fucking house because of you. And Biden, don't get me wrong. Don't want to sit there and act like Biden's not the going to blame for a lot of this too. But It all started with you. Realistically, we don't need a motherfucker that's 80 years old running the country. It's not their world anymore. They're not as sharp as they used to be. They have no filter. Realistically, they could die tomorrow, so who really gives a fuck about what happens to the world, right? I'm going to be gone anyway. That's how they look at it. 80 years old. And anything that I'm saying, if I'm lying, please fact check me. I'll do Harris next. I'll make sure I get on Harris too, so that way you can go ahead and differentiate who's worse or who's better or who, I guess, which is the less of which evil. But for me, I don't want a person that's going to spread that. I just want a person that can be diplomatic, conduct themselves as an intellect, which I do see in Harris. Policy, I'm not sure. But I'll tell you this, under Trump's market, you can expect a lot of volatility. So if you're a value investor, you're probably going to want to look to fucking companies that are technology based, but based on government contracts with wars and shit like that. Cyber warfare, shit like that, and maybe the real estate market. But I just want you to think about how hard it is to go ahead and even picture a house at this point. Because if he comes in the presidency, and that was one other thing I did want to touch on. He's pissed off that they're looking at going and lowering rates or cutting rates now in September, right? Which is basically their goal initially last year was they were going to make 4 cuts this particular year. They couldn't do it. Really don't even know for sure if we're going to see a rate cut in September, but they're getting to the point to where now we're getting to a point where it's getting serious because they're playing with the job market in order to go ahead and do this, to try and calm the inflation and calm the economy. It's getting to the point they may have to make cuts, right? So Trump is saying they shouldn't make cuts, blah, blah, but then he plans to make cuts in his presidency. Convenient. So I just want you to think about that. How the fuck are you ever going to get a house at this fucking point? If the housing market, I know in my house, like in Arizona or whatnot, the average house is around probably $375 to $400. A decent house, $400 to $450, right? In an actual nice neighborhood, in a house that you would typically call a little bit nicer than nice, $750, $800, right? Interest rates are at an all-time high, 7%. Credit card debt, all-time high. Credit card interest rates, all-time high. And again, a lot of this shit, we could say it's because of Biden, but when we start looking at credit card debt, credit card interest, was that because the free money ran out? And then on top of that, all the inflation that ended up happening with the tariffs and, that being passed on to the consumer, a lot of that shit comes from both of them. You do the math.